Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who conquered all of Europe, but fell by underestimating the Russian winter. Napoleon was a Corsican general who became Emperor of France in 1804. He began as a young artillery officer during the French Revolution and rose to power through brilliant military coups. He reformed France's legal code, centralized the government, and expanded the French Empire across nearly all continental Europe. By age 40, he controlled territories from Spain to Poland. Napoleon won over 60 battles and redrew the political map of Europe. He repeatedly defeated coalitions of European powers. His administrative reforms shaped modern nations, and his Napoleonic Code still influences legal systems in over 70 countries. He turned France from a chaotic republic into an imperial superpower in less than a decade. But Napoleon made the fatal mistake of invading Russia in 1812 with 600,000 soldiers. The Russian winter and scorched earth tactics destroyed his army. Only 100,000 returned. The European powers united, defeated him, and exiled him to the island of Elba. He escaped, ruled again for 100 days, and was finally defeated at Waterloo. He died isolated on St. Helena at 51. Napoleon proved that military genius has geographic limits, and that even empires look small against winter. If Napoleon fell due to excessive ambition, the next dictator fell for the opposite reason: cruelty that alienated even his allies. Idi Amin, the dictator who ate 40 oranges a day and expelled 80,000 Asians from Uganda in 90 days. Idi Amin was a Ugandan soldier who seized power through a military coup in 1971. With no formal education, he rose through the ranks of the British colonial army through strength and loyalty. He proclaimed himself conqueror of the British Empire and King of Scotland. He ruled Uganda for 8 years with growing paranoia and random violence. Amin killed between 100,000 and 500,000 Ugandans during his regime. He executed political enemies, intellectuals, entire ethnic groups, and even loyal supporters who showed doubt. He expelled Uganda's entire Asian population, 80,000 people, in just 3 months, destroying the nation's economy. His rule was so brutal that even other African dictators found him excessive, but Amin made a strategic mistake. In 1978, he invaded Tanzania to annex territory. President Julius Nyerere counterattacked, invaded Uganda, and overthrew Amin with the help of Ugandan rebels. Amin fled to Libya, then to Saudi Arabia, where he lived comfortably until dying of kidney failure in 2003. He was never tried for his crimes. Benito Mussolini, the inventor of fascism, who ended up hanging upside down at a gas station. Mussolini was an Italian teacher and socialist journalist who became a fascist leader after World War I. He founded the fascist movement in 1919, promising order and national glory. His followers marched on Rome in 1922, and King Vittorio Emanuele III appointed him prime minister. He turned Italy into a totalitarian state, abolished political parties, and built a massive cult of personality. Mussolini invaded Ethiopia in 1935, formed the Axis with Hitler, and entered World War II in 1940. He promised to restore the glory of the Roman Empire, mobilizing millions for war. His regime controlled education, media, art, and even private life through the secret police OVRA. But military defeats piled up. The Allies invaded Sicily in 1943. His own fascist Grand Council voted him out. The king dismissed and arrested him. German commandos rescued him, but he ruled only a puppet state in the north. In 1945, Italian communists captured him, fleeing to Switzerland, executed him and his lover, and hung their bodies upside down in Milan for public display. Mussolini proved that movements based on past glory collapse when the present brings only defeat, and that allies abandon those who lose wars. Franco, the only European fascist dictator to die of natural causes after 36 years in power. Franco was a Spanish general who led the military coup against the Spanish Republic in 1936. The Spanish Civil War lasted 3 years, and killed 500,000 people. With military support from Hitler and Mussolini, Franco won. He established a Catholic conservative authoritarian regime that suppressed regional separatism, communism, and democracy. Franco executed over 100,000 political opponents after the Civil War and imprisoned hundreds of thousands in concentration camps. He banned regional languages like Catalan and Basque. He tightly controlled media, education, and culture. Yet he also modernized Spain's economy in the 1950s to 60s, transforming it from agrarian to industrial. He maintained calculated neutrality during World War II, avoiding devastation. Franco had historical luck. He survived World War II without fully committing to the Axis. The Allies tolerated him during the Cold War as an anti-communist stronghold. In the 1960s, he partially liberalized the economy, attracting tourism and investment. Gradually, he ceded power to institutions and named Juan Carlos as successor, who began Spain's democratic transition after Franco's death. He died at 82, in bed, never tried. Franco proved that pragmatic dictators outlive ideological ones, and that geopolitical timing matters more than brute force. Jorge Rafael Videla, the Argentine general who disappeared 30,000 people and died in prison at 87. Videla was the Argentine army commander who led the 1976 coup against Isabel Perón. He established a three-man military junta and began the national reorganization process. His regime waged war on leftist guerrillas through systematic state terrorism. Videla ordered the abduction, torture, and execution of about 30,000 Argentines during the Dirty War. The military raided homes at night, kidnapped people without warrants, tortured them in secret centers, and threw bodies into the Rio de la Plata, or ocean, from helicopters. Babies born to imprisoned mothers were adopted by military families. The repression was so effective, it eliminated organized opposition in 3 years. But the humiliating defeat in the Falklands War in 1982 destroyed military legitimacy. The economy collapsed with 3,000% hyperinflation. Civil society mobilized through the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, who protested weekly. The junta was forced to call elections in 1983. Videla was tried in 1985, sentenced to life imprisonment, pardoned in 1990, imprisoned again in 2010, and died in prison in 2013, serving multiple life sentences. Saddam Hussein, the man who survived 8 years of war against Iran, but not 21 days against the U.S. Saddam was a Ba'ath Party revolutionary who seized power in Iraq through coups and assassinations. He became president in 1979 after forcing his predecessor to resign. His first act was executing 68 Ba'ath Party members on live TV, establishing control through fear. He ruled Iraq for 24 years with growing paranoia and a massive cult of personality. Saddam modernized Iraq's infrastructure with oil money, building hospitals, schools, and roads. But he also started the Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, killing 1 million people. He used chemical weapons against Iraqi Kurds in Halabja, killing 5,000 civilians in a single day. He invaded Kuwait in 1990, causing the Gulf War. His regime executed between 250,000 and 500,000 Iraqis through mass killings and repression. He survived the 1991 Gulf War, but became internationally isolated. UN sanctions destroyed Iraq's economy. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, alleging weapons of mass destruction. Baghdad fell in 21 days. Saddam hid for 8 months in an underground hole until captured. He was tried by the Iraqi government, convicted of crimes against humanity, and hanged in 2006. The execution video leaked online. Saddam Hussein showed that surviving regional wars doesn't guarantee survival against superpowers, and that the age of isolated dictators ended with the internet. François Duvalier, Papa Doc, the Haitian dictator who ruled through mystical terror using voodoo and death squads. Duvalier was a Haitian doctor and ethnologist elected president in 1957, promising social improvements for the black majority. He quickly declared himself president for life. He created the Tonton Macoutes, a paramilitary militia wearing sunglasses and hats that killed opponents publicly. He used voodoo symbolism and portrayed himself as the embodiment of Baron Samedi, the spirit of death. He ruled Haiti for 14 years. Duvalier killed between 30,000 and 60,000 Haitians. The Tonton Macoutes were more feared than the regular army, raiding homes, torturing people in the streets, and hanging bodies in public squares. Duvalier exiled or executed the educated middle class, causing massive brain drain. He siphoned international aid into personal accounts and turned Haiti into the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, while amassing a personal fortune of $900 million. Duvalier never fell. He died of diabetes and heart disease in 1971 at 64, still in power. He passed the presidency to his son, Jean-Claude "Baby Doc" Duvalier, who ruled another 15 years until being ousted in 1986. The Duvalier dynasty lasted 29 years total. François was never held accountable. He was buried with state honors, and his legacy of terror still haunts Haiti. JOSIP Broz Tito, the only communist leader to openly defy Stalin and live to tell the tale. Tito was a Croatian metalworker who became a guerrilla leader during World War II. He led the partisans against Nazis, Italian fascists, and local collaborators with little Soviet help. He liberated Yugoslavia on his own and emerged as a national hero. He became the leader of communist Yugoslavia in 1945, but broke with Stalin in 1948, creating self-managed socialism. He ruled for 35 years. Tito unified 6 republics and 2 autonomous provinces into a federation balancing Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Bosnians, Macedonians, Montenegrins, and Albanians. He founded the non-aligned movement during the Cold War, refusing to side with either the US or USSR. He maintained a relatively high standard of living by communist standards. He suppressed ethnic nationalism but avoided mass genocide. He was both loved and feared. But Tito died in 1980, and Yugoslavia began collapsing immediately. Without his personal authority, ethnic nationalism resurfaced. The stagnant economy fueled resentment. In 1991, Yugoslavia plunged into civil war, killing 140,000 and creating 7 independent countries. The dream of a multi-ethnic federation collapsed into genocide and ethnic cleansing. Tito was buried in Belgrade. His mausoleum still attracts visitors. Pol Pot, the dictator who killed 25% of his own population in 4 years, trying to create an agrarian utopia. Pol Pot was a Cambodian teacher who studied in Paris and embraced radical communism. He led the Khmer Rouge, a communist guerrilla that seized power in Cambodia in 1975 after a civil war. He immediately evacuated all cities, forcing millions into agricultural labor camps. He abolished money, religion, family, and private property. He renamed the country Democratic Kampuchea. Pol Pot executed intellectuals, teachers, doctors, and engineers. Anyone wearing glasses was killed as an intellectual. He murdered between 1.5 and 2 million Cambodians, 25% of the population, through executions, starvation, forced labor, and torture. Killing fields like Tuol Sleng became symbols of horror. Urban populations were forced into 12 to 16-hour farm labor. Starvation killed hundreds of thousands. His own paranoia brought his downfall. He repeatedly attacked Vietnam's border. Vietnam invaded Cambodia in 1978 and overthrew the Khmer Rouge in 2 weeks. Pol Pot fled to the jungle, led a guerrilla movement for 20 more years, but never regained power. In 1997, he was arrested by his own commanders after ordering the execution of a close associate. He died in 1998, likely poisoned, never tried internationally. Mengistu Haile Mariam, the Ethiopian dictator who executed Emperor Haile Selassie and fled to Zimbabwe in a private jet. Mengistu was a low-born Ethiopian military officer who led the 1974 communist coup against Emperor Haile Selassie. He took full control in 1977 after eliminating rivals through executions. He declared Ethiopia a Marxist-Leninist state and began the Red Terror, a campaign that killed between 30,000 and 750,000 Ethiopians. He ruled for 14 years with Soviet and Cuban support. Mengistu forcibly collectivized land, causing mass famine that killed 1 million people between 1983 to 85. He relocated 600,000 peasants by force. He fought simultaneous civil wars against Eritrea, Tigray, and Ogaden. He received $13 billion in Soviet and Cuban military aid. He used public executions and torture to instill fear. His regime even banned traditional Ethiopian music and art as reactionary. But when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, his military support vanished. Rebel forces from the north advanced on Addis Ababa. Mengistu fled the palace in May 1991, escaping to Zimbabwe, where he still lives under protection. He was tried in absentia in Ethiopia, sentenced to death in 2006 for genocide, but Zimbabwe refuses extradition. He lives comfortably at 87. Muammar Gaddafi, the colonel who ruled Libya for 42 years and was lynched in the street during the Arab Spring. Gaddafi was a young Libyan officer who overthrew King Idris in a bloodless coup in 1969 at age 27. He established the Jamahiriya, the state of the masses, based on Arab socialism and Pan-African nationalism. He published the Green Book, outlining his ideology. He nationalized oil, distributed wealth, and built infrastructure. But he also created an absolute personal dictatorship, ruling through revolutionary committees and paranoia. Gaddafi financed international terrorism for decades. The 1988 Lockerbie bombing killed 270 people. The 1986 Berlin disco bombing killed Americans. He brutally suppressed dissent through public hangings, secret prisons, and assassinations abroad. He maintained an armed female guard and used Bedouin tents during state visits. Then came the Arab Spring in 2011. Peaceful protests in Benghazi were met with extreme violence. Civil war erupted. Gaddafi ordered massacres, promising to clean Libya house by house. NATO intervened with a no-fly zone. Rebels advanced. Gaddafi was captured on October 20, 2011, hiding in a drainage pipe in Sirte. He was beaten, sodomized with a bayonet, and executed by a mob. Videos of his death spread worldwide. Bashar al-Assad, the shy ophthalmologist, who inherited a dictatorship and turned his country into a graveyard with 500,000 dead. Assad was a London-trained ophthalmologist who was never meant to rule. His older brother, Basil, was the chosen heir, but died in a car accident in 1994. Bashar was called back to Syria, fast-tracked through military training, and assumed the presidency in 2000 after the death of his father, Hafez al-Assad, who had ruled for 29 years. He was only 34. Many expected reforms and openness. They got the opposite. Assad initially signaled reforms. He released political prisoners, allowed limited debate, and opened the economy. But when the Arab Spring reached Syria in 2011 with peaceful protests, he responded with tanks and snipers. The ensuing civil war killed more than 500,000 people. Assad used chemical weapons against civilians on at least 8 occasions, including the 2013 Ghouta attack that killed 1,400 people. Barrel bombs, starvation sieges, systematic torture in prisons, all documented. Yet Assad remains in power to this day. With Russian and Iranian military support, he retook 70% of Syrian territory. Putin sent an air force in 2015, changing the course of the war. Iran sent Shia militias. Assad survived when everyone predicted his fall. 6.7 million Syrians fled the country, the largest refugee crisis since World War II. He rules over ruins, but he rules. He has never been tried, never fallen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See what's next. The American Revolutionary War. 13 British colonies rebelled against the world's most powerful empire over taxation without representation.